To keep mantel clocks running and looking great, it's important to use special care while moving. Before you move it, the first thing you need to do is remove the pendulum. Whether you're moving it to another room in your house or you're buying one at an antique store and bringing it home, always remove the pendulum because this protects the movement and keeps it running well. If it's left inside during a move, what usually happens is it swings really hard to one side and then it gets out of beat and it doesn't run well. And we don't want that. Just lift it up, it comes right out. Some might be a little more tricky than others. With it removed, the pendulum leader might start running really fast. It's fine, your clock is just happy to run. You might come across a clock that doesn't have a removable pendulum. You look inside and you don't see one. Well, they use what's called a floating balance, and you can see one here. This type of movement just saved you a step, so be thankful. If you're only moving your mantel clock to another room, removing the pendulum is the only thing you need to do. For a move inside the house, I usually put the key and pendulum inside the back of the case until I get it ready to set up. If you're driving a short distance with your car, it's probably okay just to put your clock on the floorboard or even in the seat of your car. If you're careful when you accelerate, brake, and make turns, you can drive a short distance and your clock should be just fine. In addition to removing the pendulum, one thing you can do to help keep it in beat is gently place a rag around the pendulum leader. This provides just a little extra insurance, especially if you're driving very far or maybe your car or SUV doesn't ride very well. This is definitely an optional step. I don't normally do this, but I wanted to give you that option. The next part of your clock we want to protect is the chime and strike mechanisms. Most mantel clocks have either gongs, chime rods, some even might have bells. And if it's an older clock, these can break quite easily during a transport. So it's good to prevent vibration of these pieces if you're going very far. For chime rods, usually you can put a rag around them and that's enough. I like to go underneath first, giving enough support, and then wrapping it over. We're just trying to eliminate any chance of vibration. If it's a gong, you can cut some cardboard and tape it to fit. If you're really worried about your chime rods or gongs, usually they are fairly easy to remove and can be packed in their own box. Especially if they're really old and these parts are cast iron. A little extra effort is worth it because it can be hard to find replacement parts for these. Now be sure to keep the pendulum, key, and any paperwork you have on the clock all together because we don't want to be missing anything. Now I'm going to show you a few things you can do to protect your clock during a long transport or if you're moving to a new house. In addition to what I just mentioned, we need to take some steps to protect the case. If you're moving to a new house, get a box that is a lot larger than your clock because you need to pack it well, especially around the glass bezel, the feet, and any ornamental decor. You can use thick blankets, bubble wrap, all kinds of packing material, but just know that a thin layer will not do much. In fact, I'd make it several inches thick. Some people even double box with packing in between. Just be careful not to put too much pressure on any glass or decor that can be easily bent or broken. Now, as you bundle it up, don't allow the packing tape to come in contact with the finish because it might pull it off or leave residue. Mark it fragile, and this might be one of those few items you want to transport in your own vehicle if you're moving to a new house. When you've completed your move and are ready to unpack it carefully. And I mean carefully. If you're like me, you're excited to get your clock up and running, find the perfect place, and hear the chime, but don't rush it. I like to remember this proverb from the Bible. Enthusiasm without knowledge is no good. Haste makes mistakes. That's a really good word, and it will help you when you're moving a clock. So carefully remove the outer packing material, and when you get to the inner packing material around the movement, be extra careful because it can snag, and if you pull too hard, something could break, and that could ruin your whole day. To set up your clock, find a place that is level. Have the clock with its back towards you. Open the door and insert the pendulum. If it's a floating balance, it might still be running. When you're ready, turn your clock around. Now, with it facing you, gently lift one side of the clock just up a few inches and set it down. This starts the pendulum swinging and your clock should be running. You can also do this if you forget to wind it and it stops and need to start it again. It's nice not having to open the back door and nudge the pendulum with your fingers. And speaking of winding, most mantel clocks will run a week on a winding. On older ones, it's best not to wind them up all the way. I actually broke a mainspring on an older young'uns and it was just a terrible day. It's better to wind them somewhere between halfway and 3/4. If you wind it all the way to where it stops, that's a full wind, that's too far. You'll get the hang of it. So let's say you've wound your antique clock on a Sunday, wait till Wednesday and then give it a little half wind. That way it keeps it running throughout the week. This makes it easier on old springs. It's kind of like not over revving an old car engine or an engine with a lot of miles. If your clock has 2 winding arbors, it should strike on the hour and half past. If it has 3, it should chime every quarter hour and strike at the top of the hour. When advancing the hands, let the strike and chime finish before continuing. You can mess it up if you don't. If the time is very far off, you can save time by setting a reminder on your phone and doing it later. Finally, keep the key in a nearby place and enjoy your clock. Thank you for watching today. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos about clocks.